So hello guys, and yes, today we're going to be refining 24 karat gold. Right off the bat, the first step was that I took a really old gold chain, probably 9 carats, and dissolved it in nitric acid. Of course, not the gold, but the other metals that were in there that could be dissolved in nitric acid, like mostly copper, because the solution is now blue. That is a great sign of copper nitrate. This reaction also produces a lot of nitrogen dioxide gas, which is that red color you can see above the liquid. It's very toxic. Please do it outdoors if you decide to do this. My yield was probably 1.5 gram because the chain was pretty big and it was that low carat. So then we dissolved it in some Aqua Regia, which is just a combination of nitric acid and hydrochloric acid, and then we all knocked it out with sodium metabisulfate, and voila, we had a gold bead. So there you go, and this is the step after the washing. So now I'm just going to pour it off and dry it out. It's all dry. So now let's prepare my acids. There you go, there's my hydrochloric acid and a little bit of nitric acid. We don't need too much nitric acid. I'm going to do a 12 to 1.5 ratio to milliliters, of course. It's not going to be very much to dissolve it. So there you go, I added 12 milliliters of that, of the hydrochloric acid. And yes, I am wearing a gas mask. That's because hydrochloric acid is very irritative. So now, here I added 1.5 milliliters of nitric acid. It just helps to oxidize everything and to turn it into chloroauric acid, which then can be knocked out by potassium metabisulfate. And of course, this reaction has to be heated up, unless it would take ages. So let's just put it in the oven. There we go, I turned the ventilation on. I put it on 50 degrees and the bubbles are starting to form, as you can see when I zoom in. That was beautiful. Yep. And this reaction is gonna start off pretty violently, and it's gonna dissolve the gold in actually quite a long time. It took 40 minutes to do it. And there you go, you can see that all the gold is nearly dissolved. So let's just wait until these last few pieces dissolve, and we are ready to move on to the next step. And there you go, all the gold has dissolved, no problems. I also the whole time was keeping a glass lid on top of the glass that I was dissolving it in, because of course it's producing a lot of nasty fumes. So now, there it is. It's nice and warm. That is probably $150 worth of gold solution of chloroauric acid. That's wonderful. So now, let's prepare our solution of potassium metabisulfate. You can use sodium or potassium metabisulfate, it doesn't matter, it's totally the same. It'll work just fine. I just put it in some water. When it stops dissolving, I'm going to filter it out with a cotton plug and then call it done and pour it into our solution of Aqua Regia. And there you go, it stopped. So let's now turn it into clear liquid. And there you go, it's now nice and clear, the saturated solution of potassium metabisulfate. Now we of course have to filter off our Aqua Regia also, because of course it does contain a little bit of undissolved impurities, some dust particles that are not gold, that would just harden the process a little bit. So let's just do that. I have to make sure that I wash everything with water to get all of the solution in our jar there. There you go, that's beautiful. It's nice and clear, it's yellow just like it's supposed to be. So there's nothing else remaining than to just add our sodium metabisulfate. You can use other chemicals to further purify it, like sulfuric acid. There's some lead in there, or ammonia to knock out any, I believe, silver. Most of it is knocked out in this process of adding the sodium potassium metabisulfate there. So let's just observe the reaction. It should turn brown. And yes, it is turning brown. That is the sign of the gold mud precipitating. That it is. Most people would totally be really ignorant of the fact that this is gold. It totally doesn't look like gold. I'm gonna add just a little more to be sure. You can use stannous chloride or a pH paper to test if there is still any gold remaining in the chloroauric form. I didn't do that here because I just added an excessive amount of potassium metabisulfate, and I really made sure that there was no gold there, so I extracted most of it. And you can see it has turned brown, and we can now see our gold mud down at the bottom. So Now that everything is washed away a couple times with hot boiling water, there's nothing else remaining than to dry it out and melt it. The melting process was a little hard because I have to admit I was very dumb and I did it in a mortar and pestle, and it cracked immediately. Fortunately, it was just melted enough where I can recover pretty much most of it, and I ended up with a nice gold bead, which I'm going to show in a couple of seconds. I also used some borax, of course, for the flux. I sprinkled a little bit on top. In the meantime, I destroyed my kettle. First time melting gold, so there you go. There's one red spot which I don't know where it's from. I managed to clean it with a little bit of vinegar, nitric acid, and some alcohol, and there you go. It's nice and clean. It's quite a big piece of gold, worth at least $100. So it's nice. We made this, and yeah, there you go. It's beautiful. I expected my yield to be less than that. Trust me, because the process was really hard, and my gold mud was looking that it would produce only like a fraction of this, of my yield here. So I'm really happy about the result, and yeah, goodbye and see you in the next one. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is probably the biggest chemical project that I ever did on this channel, and I shortened it down very much. There were some steps that I did to ensure the highest quality of the gold, but end of talk. Goodbye.